On December 14, 2012, in Newton, Connecticut, a terrible violent attack happened. A 20-year-old man fatally shot and killed 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7 years old, along with 6 other staff members. Adam Lanza was the killer, who spent hours in a windowless basement playing the first-person shooter game, Call of Duty. Each of these 20 children had parents. Parents are still having a difficult time trying to figure out if they even have a plan for life. It is with sad tragedy that more acts of violence have come to common all over the world. After taking the time into researching the subject of my speech, I have agreed with the experts. The only way to prevent these terrible tragedies is to reduce the amount of violence in video games. I know there is a major controversy over such a plan to go into place, but I also know that almost everyone can agree on the fact violence in video games has gone into play in real life too many times. So please listen to me with an open mind while we are able to discuss the multiple problems associated with violent video games, the tragedies that have occurred, and a plan that will help diminish these terrible types of killings. The evidence is hard facts. Violence in video games has led to multiple killings of innocent lives. Take back in 2012. Who could forget? Aurora, Colorado. Bless all of them. Such a tragedy. James Holmes went on a rampage, killing in a movie theater showing The Dark Knight Rises. He was a frequent player of the violent video game, World of Warcraft. Back in 1999, Columbine High School Masquerade. The two killers had been devotees to the first-person shooter game, Doom. There are at least 14 mass murderers linked to violent video games. And did you know that by the time a kid reaches 18, they have killed over 100,000 in the violent video games that they choose to play? There are several factors that can play a role into mass murderers. However, significant ones are going to be talked about now. One of the causes is violent video games uses and both increases aggressive behavior and decreases pro-social behavior, moral engagement, and empathy. A second cause is video games should not use humans, other living targets, or to award for points for killing, for this is teaching children to associate pleasure and success with their ability to cause pain and suffering to others. Back in 1961 and 1963, Albert Bandura did the Bodo doll experiment to study children's behavior after watching an adult model act aggressively towards a Bodo doll. The children reacted the same way. This is the mock what you see. A third cause of mass murders related to the video games of violence. Charisma News stated, Chris Harper Mercer saying, I've been waiting to do this for years, and then opened fired and killed 10 total people and hurt 7 more. 10 was the count, though, including himself. This took place on a campus. He was obsessed with video games and also talked about it in the forums, and even had people encouraging him to do such a mass murder. Finally, everyone has either at one point in their life played a violent video game or witnessed another person playing a violent video game. We all know what the feeling is when you get that adrenaline rush. The major problem is that addiction to the violence can lead to the mass killings. Ohio State University conducted a study and concluded, people who have a steady diet of playing these violent video games may come to see the world as a hostile and violent place. These results suggest there could be a cumulative effect. So what steps do we need to take to prevent these? First, we need a fine to be made to any parent who buys their kid a violent video game that is under the age of 18. This will allow 18 and under to mature and play unrelated violent video games that can help them perceive the world as a less hostile and violent place. Second, there needs to be a watch on the video game forums of people talking about their killings. Had there been, the Chris Harper Mercer mass murder could have been prevented, for he told the forum he was going to kill. Third, there needs to be a restriction on the amount of killings one can do per player per day. With less amount of killings able to happen, there is a less chance one will perceive the world as a hostile and violent place. The only policy that will help diminish these mass murderers is no more than a certain amount of killings per day, along with parents being fined for buying violent video games. Yes, I know. This is not fair to the children and adults who would ever orchestrate such murderers that I have shown. The evidence is hardcore connection to the amount of lives that have been taken. How would you feel if your child was one of the children of Sandy Hook, and you knew that that killer played your favorite video game? I'm sure all of you have witnessed violent video games or even played them yourself. But take a look at all the mass murders that have occurred in direct violence to the video games. Sandy Hook, The Dark Knight, Sparks Middle School, Doom, all played first-person player shooter games, mass killings. Of course, there is no way to solve any problem that arises, but with violent video games, we can start to help prevent them. As I stated, this is not fair to all the children and adults, but I know families who have lost loved ones due to the connection to violent video games would love to have their sweet babies back in their arms. Wouldn't you?